Hello, it's Ren Presents time. I'm your host, Ren, and today we continue with the House of Bloodstein, Perlamum, Chapter 24, The Dead Man, Part 1. And we're in our third week of our voluntary lockdown here at Fortress Bloodstein in Central Ohio. Been practicing safe social distancing, been buying industrial grade toilet paper in bulk via Amazon. Our hand sanitizer levels are getting low, and possibly worst of all, my hair is whack. I was due for a haircut when all this crap started, and now I look like a woolly mammoth, Bigfoot, call it what you will. It's bad. So the first thing I'm going to do, when and if we're ever allowed to emerge from our respective fortresses, is get a bloody haircut. When last we saw, the Wonderlucks headed north to confront the Blancheforts, invoking the ancient rite of Infinata, which means even if you have beef with a certain fifth house, they are forced to grant you hospitality and food and hear all of your grievances. And they wanted about 2 or 3 million Rubicons, which is the currency of note in Remnath, for the battle in the Wonderluck's treasure vaults. They wanted to have free run of the Blanchefort treasure vault and decimate it to their liking, to take every 10th piece they come across out. And then they wanted a little bit more money to not have them hauled off in irons to Remnath to face charges. And then they threw in some hokum about Sam apologizing to the Wonderlucks on her knees. Obviously, it enraged Kay, and using the old dungeon system underneath Kai's Cat God pub, trapped them in one of his great-grandfather Mazerfeld's old dungeons. As when we concluded the chapter, Magistrate Kylos was on her way east to get the deed to Castle Bloodstein, so the Wonderlucks couldn't get it. Sam was still convalescing from the Hemolizer attack that the Wonderlucks put to her, and Sarah was all excited about facing the Dead Man of Mare to get the Joker piece, and then they'll have the complete set of Wohella Cormorgrand's Perlamum pieces. We're almost done with this book. We're on chapter 24. There's only 2 chapters left. This goes up to chapter 26 and it's done. But this is a monstrously huge chapter. It's 42 pages. There's no way I can do it all in one sitting. I think I'm going to try to break it up into 2, and it might possibly be 3 parts. This is a long, drawn-out situation that's going to happen in the Grove. I love writing action scenes like this. My literary mentor, Michael Moorcock, was really good at creating suspense and tension, in a fight. Usually a fight scene's just a fist 'em up, throwing punches or firing bullets or whatever, slashing with knives, somebody gets stabbed or shot, and that's it. Moorcock's battles were much more sophisticated, and it was hard to get the bad guy to stand and fight. Usually they wouldn't. They'd run or wait until they were in a completely advantageous situation, and then they'd fight. And then if things turned around, they'd run again. So they're chasing the bad guy, and the bad guy's running down a corridor and closes a door, and they bust through the door, and there's like a bomb waiting for them, or a monster or something, and then they see on the far side of the room another door closing. It was stuff like that. It was hard to bring the bad guys to bear. Usually his fight scenes lasted a while. I tried to emulate that and kind of go whole hog. So this is going to be part 1 of chapter 24, The Dead Man, and let's get to it. Kai, Philip, and Thomasina hopped into a rip car and headed east to Castle Bloodstein to fetch the deed from Lady Chrysania. Kay and Sarah were joined by Inez and Lady Telerin. Together, they headed back out to the Grove. "Hey, Inez," Sarah said as they trudged. "With Sam out of action, we're going to need your lady here to be Johnny on the spot with the muscle and those claws out there in case we need them. You think she's up to it? Well, Tells being a Konox isn't as strong as Sam, and that's for sure. But she's still pretty darn tough, and I'll bet Sam isn't nearly as mean as Tells is, so it would be a trade-off. Sarah was about as happy as Kay had ever seen her. With the Wonderlux in the dungeon, this dead man thing was obsessing her. I've got zinc bullets in my clip, followed by silver ones. I think it's a good idea to have a lot of options and a variety to choose from, just for in case this gets weird. This is already weird, Sarah, Kay said, saddling his Karg. No, Kay. Fun. This is fun. This is what we live for. And remember, we're sticking it to those shock-type bastards in the dungeon. Always a planner, Sarah took inventory. Okay, we've got my Poltava. Kay's got his Karg with full silver tech. How many shots do you have with it? I don't know, 2, maybe 3, it varies. Well, that's a cool thing. It should be good. Inez has his staff, and his ladies are muscle. Good! And we've got King here to give him the old lights out, should it be needed. The dead guy doesn't stand a chance. King stirred. This is not a good idea, he stated quietly. Listen to him, will ya? Sarah cried. Don't be a nervous Nelly, King. You're here for destruction. Everybody pay him no mind. He's up for this. Sarah pointed to Lady Telerin. Inez, can she do the thing Sam does with her claws? You know, flick her wrists and make them bigger? No. Why not? Because she's not an Anuian. Well, that sucks. Her claws are still plenty sharp, Sarah. You'll find out. They entered the clearing, seeing nothing but an empty green surrounded by giant oak trees. The place was whisper-locked into quiet serenity. What's the password for today? Sarah asked. Kay answered, It's my beloved Sammy Doran. Oh, you're gonna make me ill with all this sap. Kay, is that really what it is? Yes. As Kay uttered the words, the whisper's veil parted, and they could see what was really in the clearing. To the north was the giant Silvertech oak tree disguise, and the machine hidden within it. The 2 bark dogs still maintained their watch over the clearing, thumping their tails as they arrived. Sarah gave them both loving pats on the head as she passed by. Hey guys, go play. We're here now. Go have fun, Sarah said to them, and the silver barks padded away toward the castle. Why'd you do that for? Kay asked. They're looking a little sluggish to me. I sent them back to the castle. We'll fetch more later. Kay approached the Silvertech tree, and it parted for him, revealing the machine within. Whisper ladybugs, like flying pastel candies, serenely orbited about the clearing. So, with these familiars in place, we cannot be seen or heard? Inez asked. That's correct, Kay said. Not unless you know the password. Good to know. What about you, Inez? You up for this fight? Sarah asked. He laughed. I've been fighting monsters, villains, and other horrors since well before you were born, Sarah. He pulled his jet staff from his brace and extended it. Okay, good. Just checking. So, are we ready to do this? Sarah asked. I suppose so. Let's get this over with, Kay said. I am not, King said. King, quit griping and get your butt up there and cover us, Sarah yelled. He took flight and hovered overhead, his silver wings beating, light shining down from him. Kay examined the setup. Lady Telerin, can you please center the mirror? Be careful, it's heavy. Yeah, sure. She stepped around behind the Oberphiliacs and picked it up with some difficulty. She moved it into place. When we finished with this, I get to fight her, right? She asked, looking at Sarah. Kay nodded. If Sarah survives this encounter, then yes, I suppose. She seems keen on it. With everything apparently ready to go, they concentrated on Mare, far off in Zaffin space. It took quite a bit longer than it did to bring up Baz, a place they were all very familiar with. Lots of things appeared in the surface of the mirror which weren't Mare. Strange, empty hollows of space appeared, along with unknown nebulas. Clouds of ice and gas and other celestial bodies flashed into the mirror's surface and were discarded. Eventually, with much concentration and misadventure, Mare appeared on the display, silent and bluish, along with its sparse yet utterly sinister ring. This would be a lot easier if Philip were here, Kay said. Through trial and error, they eventually managed to maneuver the screen until they had the gory image of a solitary space-suited body slowly tumbling through the cold of space. It was a male, medium-sized, though it was difficult to judge just how big he was without anything to compare him to. Like the other bodies they'd seen, his arms were held straight out at either side, level with his shoulders, while his legs were seemingly fused together like a capital T. His dead face was puckered into pursed lip mystery behind his fishbowl helmet. Attached to his midsection via a tangled network of sticky-looking white cords was an ornate box. The cords were snaked around his waist in a haphazard, rather random fashion, as if the box and the cords had been fired from a great distance and had adhered to his spacesuit by happenstance. The box was hopelessly tangled under the cords, the lid held shut by them. "There he is! Look at him! I wish Sam were here to see this. Wow! I'll bet Wilhilla's goons hung well back, shot the box into the ring, and hope for the best," Sarah said. "But whatever," Kay replied. "There's our boy, and there's our damn box. Are we ready?" Sarah pulled her Pertava. "We're ready," Sarah said. She looked overhead. "King, you ready?" "I am not," came his unsmiling voice. "Good! Let's do this! Go get him!" Inez was fascinated. He pulled several of his scanners, ready to take readings. King fluttered through the arch and into the mirror, appearing in the vacuum of space near the dead man. He latched on with his tiny silver feet, and like a tugboat shoving around a much larger vessel, hauled him through the mirror frame. King ran into a problem as the dead man's extended arms were too wide to fit through. "I shall require assistance," he announced. Kay and Inez came forward. "He is deep cold," Inez said. "You're going to need a pair of gloves. The blood vessels in your hands will burst." "I'll be fine." After a bit of adjusting and tugging, they maneuvered the dead man through the mirror frame and past the arch of the oberphiliacs. King released him, and the dead body stiffly clattered to the ground. His deep frozen body quickly rhymed over in the much warmer air of the grove. His helmet fogged up. The tanks at his back made grinding, clanking, popping sounds. Ice cracked. The grass beneath him froze in a whitish outline. Kay closed the gate. Lady Telerin set down the mirror and joined them. Sarah gazed at him open-mouthed, just barely able to contain herself. There he was, the Dead Man from Mare. He was much larger than he appeared in the mirror, at least 12 feet tall. His dead, squashed face, though somewhat indistinct inside the fogged-up helmet, appeared to be quite hairless and fleshy. His jowls were markedly pronounced, and his dead lips were pursed. "We are going to have a heck of a time getting him back into the mirror. That was quite difficult," Kay said, rubbing his hands. "Nah," Sarah replied. "We'll just cut his arms off, and he'll slide right in." She reached down and shook his helmet in an affectionate manner. "You won't need them, will ya?" "You could show a bit of respect for the dead, Sarah," Kay said. "What for? I'm loving over this dead guy." Kay tugged on the box of Perlman pieces, trying to pull them away. "This box is fused on hard. It's not budging." Inez scanned the giant man while Kay struggled. "He's reading like a standard Zaffin male, dead, of course, and deep frozen. I'm also reading a whole cocktail of various chemicals in his body, helping to proof him against the rigors of space. Why is he so big, I wonder? Seems like he's been artificially enlarged to giant size." He made some notes. "Wish I could keep him for study." "We'll save you an arm or a leg or something," Sarah said. Kay got frustrated with the box, and Sarah moved in. "Out of the way, Kay, will you?" she said. She pulled on the box, and the white, fleshy filaments holding it in place. She, too, seemed to be getting nowhere. "Wow, that's on there. It's not budging. My hands are frozen. Inez, can your lady help us out here?" Kay asked Lady Telerin for assistance, and she stepped forward. She tugged on the box. It was like it was welded to his body. The entire dead man moved up and down as she pulled. She winced and released him. Her hands turned blue. She showed them to Inez. "Ouch, darling, you've given yourself a bit of frostbite. I'll give you an ointment later. You'll be fine until then." She backed away, holding her fingers. The wings of her snug pendant beat at a rapid pace, trying to warm her back up. "Are you all right?" Kay asked her. "Hurts." "I'm sorry about that. Don't injure your hands any further. Thank you for trying." Inez pulled several tools from his pockets. He got out a pair of dino cutters and an electric knife. "I'll try to cut the box off. I'm going to make a cut in the filaments here and here, near the left rib area, he said, giving the dead man's chest a hollow tap with the cutter. He warmed the area with his electro knife, moving an intense tongue of electric heat back and forth like a blowtorch. Sparks issued, and smoke. He stopped to inspect his work. Nothing, he said in dismay. He gave the dead body a couple taps with his tools, and it answered in a hollow-sounding tock, like a frozen turkey. Chemical bonding. The filaments seemed to have fastened into a substance harder than my cutter's bit. Sarah was losing patience. Why are you being so nice to him, Inez? He's dead. Just cut him up into little pieces, and we'll take the part we need and figure it out later. That is not how the dead are to be treated, Kay argued. We'll make a donation somewhere as penance, okay? Inez, let's go. Slice and dice. Inez activated his cutter and sliced open the black fabric of the suit, revealing a multitude of delicate white leaf-like layers underneath. Quite remarkable. Amazing technology. A rank gas escaped through the tear Inez had made, and they all gagged. Oh, that's a stink, Sarah said, holding her nose. What is that? Lady Talaran backed away. She coughed and said a few words in Konak's, gagging as she spoke. Kay translated. I think she says the fumes are making her ill. Inez, are you reading anything? I'm getting a whole boatload of chemicals. All caustic, none that should be breathed in, bromine, various aldehydes and ketones and other chemicals I've never seen before. Very toxic. We might need respiration units, even outdoors. Kay, can you ask Telmus to stay away for the time being? I don't want her breathing it in. Monoma's sinuses are very sensitive. Kay translated, and Talaran nodded. She backed away. Inez held his breath and widened the tear, cutting down to the dead, frozen flesh within. This is going to take all day, he said. My cutter's too small and it's not designed for frozen flesh. Shut up and keep working, Sarah returned. Sarah, mind your manners, Kay said. Inez resumed cutting. Sarah stepped back and pulled a shiny weapon from her duster. I don't have time for this. Here, let me help you. She fired at Inez. Her weapon flashed, and he fell face first into the grass. Kay reacted with shock. Sarah, what did you just do? Sarah smiled and shot Kay. He also fell into the grass, stunned, sickened, equilibrium gone, unable to move. Kay watched Sarah methodically take down Lady Talaran, so sick from the fumes she breathed in she could barely move to begin with. He lay there, horrified. King fluttered in, confused by what was happening. Sarah pulled a black object from her duster that resembled a fossilized finger. Kay recalled seeing Clara Wonderluck using a similar object in Wham. The ugly black finger had a mesmerizing effect on King. He fluttered down to eye level, following the movements of the black finger in Sarah's hand. Yes, you don't want to harm me, do you? Sarah pulled a small silver jar from her duster and undid the lid. Now hold still. Hold still, that's it. Like a child catching a firefly, she scooped King up and screwed the lid back on. Handiest thing, she said, admiring the black finger she was holding. So much for the silver demon. She put the finger back into her duster and approached Kay, still holding the silver jar containing King. Thanks so much. We'll take it from here, right? She said. She pulled an appliance from her mouth and tossed it aside. Immediately, her flesh and clothing deformed into a motile mass, colors streaking, moving, reforming with plastic ductility. The black of her duster transformed with smears of bright red. Soon, the image of Sarah was gone. Shook stood there in his red suit and cloak. His silver thespian's mask, glinting in the sun, was smiling. He leaned down over Kay. Well, that was easy, wasn't it? My clients, the Wonderlucks, managed to scratch up the back half of my money. They sold some sort of demon carcass to an arcane market in Bergen for a fair profit. So here I am, ready to clean up their mess. He looked back at the machine and the mirror. So that's how he infiltrated my manor. I must admit, I was wondering. Interesting. He tapped the chin of his mask with his finger. Such potential. Kay's thoughts boiled. What had happened? How were they infiltrated? What happened to Sarah and Philip? Overhead, a silvery shape came in low over the treetops from the south. It wheeled around, extended its gear, and landed. pointed. It was the Valiant. The hatch opened and several stores tentatively poked their heads out, looking this way and that. They tromped down the gangway, followed by the now reviled troops of Wonderlucks. Ernst came out first, followed by Clara, and then Aiken. "Come along then," Shook said. "I've not all day." The Wonderlucks didn't hear him. "Where is it?" Clara asked in her loud voice. "Where's the machine?" "Where's Shook?" Ernst asked. "I'm right here, you idiots," Shook said. Shook puzzled for a moment. "Ah, yes, I see. They can't hear or see us, can they? Those amazing whisper creations at work. Yes? What is the password? Oh, yes, I heard you utter it earlier, Lord Blanchefort. It is, 'My beloved Sammy Doran.' How very quaint." With the correct password uttered, the veil parted, and the Wonderlucks and their store servants could now see and hear them. "There you are. What happened?" Clara asked. "With sorcery," Shook replied. Clara stomped up to Kay, wrenched his head up, and gave him a snide kiss on the lips. "Hello, Kay," she said. "Thought you had us back there at the bar, didn't you? Once we paid up Shook here, he gave us these cool Zaffin camouflage devices. What do you call them? Flexophones. The wonders of Wham are truly to die for," Shook said. "Well put," Aiken said. "There's gonna be some dying here, sure enough, in a little bit." He looked to the sky. "Where is our silver demon bird?" Shook held up the silver jar. "In here." "Ah, our first catch of the day. Let me have it." Aiken held out his hands, and Shook gave him the jar. The jar rattled and thumped about as if there was something fierce and enraged within. "Remarkable. The demon bird now belongs to the House of Wonderluck, as does everything else in this clearing." "Hey, give me back the finger of Zahooty, Shook." Shook reached into his cloak and gave the sinister black finger to Clara. She checked it over for damage and then placed it into her bag. Kay struggled to move, to regain control. It was like being buried deep within his own body. It was like the old Kalanju spells he'd been subjected to in the past. An image of Lady Chrysania entombed within her own body and helpless flashed across his mind. He understood how she felt. He managed to grunt out a few sounds. Clara smiled and leaned down. "What's that? Come again?" "Sarah," he managed to say. "Oh, her, your little tart cousin. Guess what? She's back at the bar in the dungeon you tried to put us in. We can cloak too, you know. When we touched off the sight-proof darkness cloud of Zahooty, we got the drop on her, tied her up good, and then stuffed a flexophone into her big mouth, making her look like one of us. I was gonna be Sarah, but Shook wanted to be her instead." She stood tall over him. "Neat. Huh." Kay turned his sight away from the grove, down the mountain shelf and into the heart of the village to Kai's bar. There was the shaft and the dungeon deep beneath the waters of the bay. There were what appeared to be the Wonderlucks still captured within. That must be Sarah, possibly Philip and Thomasina, all transformed into the Wonderlucks' likeness. He couldn't sight through the disguise. The Zaffin technology Shook used effectively defeated his sight. Even Lady Poe's amazing silver tech bark dogs had been fooled. If that was the case, then who went with Kai to Bloodstein? 2 Wonderluck imposters instead of Philip and Thomasina? Kai was probably going to get jumped somewhere along the way. Another thing, he noticed the dungeon was quickly filling with water from the bay. Sarah, disguised as Clara Wonderluck, was bobbing in the water. Soon her head would be covered. Gods, what was he to do? His cousins were slowly drowning. Clara lost interest in Kay and walked over to the machine. She went to it, taking in its features, dwarfed by it. Kay winced. By the gods, the silver check tree was now deactivated. He himself had done it. So now the machine was wide open. Clara lovingly touched its knobby surface with her eager hands. "Oh, look at it. Terrasse ma oberphiliacs. The machine! The machine! It's just like I thought it would be. Perfection. Pure perfection. When can we get it out of here and take it home?" "This very moment," Aiken said. "We'll load it up and haul it away. It'll come home to Remnath in triumph. The Wonderluck shall be the talk of the region." He stepped on Kay's face and drove it into the ground. "Ernst, get the pieces from that dead body over there. Shook, Kill this lot, starting with this one here under my foot. Shook casually adjusted his silver mask. A moment, sir. The murder of a Vith household member on Vith grounds was not in our negotiated pricing. You have my services for 25 more deaths, and that is all. I got you here. I furnished the arcane kit you needed. I handed you these Vith on these items to you on a platter. Hey, Clara screeched. It was our darkness cloud that gave you the chance to make the switch. Whatever. You wish to kill these Vith, then kill them yourselves. We hired you to do our bidding. Now get to it, Aiken said. Shook slid his ominous gun back into his cloak. Murdering Vith lunatics with the perchance for vendetta and revenge will cost you quite a bit extra. I doubt you can afford it. He glanced at the machine. Give me that device and I'll do it. That'll be sufficient payment. Clara was enraged. Go fuck yourself, Shook. Fuck you. This machine is mine. You can't have it. You got that? Then do your murdering yourselves. Fine, Clara screeched, the volume of her voice rivaling Sarah's. Somebody get me a gun. I'll do it myself. Aiken winced at the pitch and timbre of Clara's yelling. Clara, compose yourself. The machine is ours. We'll have the stores kill him. Nearby, Ernst fumbled with the giant dead man, trying but failing as Kay had to remove the box from his frozen body. His hands were turning purple. Hey, buddy, it won't come off, he said, wiping his brow. Hey, Shook, you sure this guy ain't gonna come to life on us or nothing? That is correct, Shook said. He's too far from Mare to interface with their network. He is dead and shall remain that way. Good. Aiken, still holding the silver jar imprisoning King, was unconcerned. I'll leave it. We'll simply take the creature home with us as is and go at him later with proper tools in the workshop. When we're done, we can mount him up as a prize display in our showroom. Think of the stir a giant dead man from the Zaffin space will generate. Stores came bustling out of the ship to begin taking the spoils. Hurry up! Get out here! Clara demanded. Following the stores out of the ship was a tall, stately woman in a jeweled gown. She stooped a bit to exit the hatch and stood up straight, her gown sparkling like fire in the sun. She didn't look or act like the puerile, screaming Wonderlux. She was quiet and smooth and serene in comparison. Her honey blonde hair was set in a regal style. A crown of twisted gold was nestled in her hair. Kay recognized her from Wham. It was Rothiba of George. She glided down the gangway stairs and set foot on the grass, the stores bustling past her. She came up to Aiken and stood quietly by his side. She wasn't showing any of the signs of rot or decay Lady Chrysania had mentioned. Moments later, Rusty Wonderluck emerged from the ship. He stood atop the gangway like a conquering hero with his hands on his hips, his yellow cloak fluttering. He looked the machine over. So that's it, eh? I envisioned it as being a bit more flashy. Doesn't look like much to me. Clara was clearly enthralled by the machine. Hey, screw you, asshole, she shouted at Rusty. This machine is the key to everything. With it, there is nothing and nowhere that is beyond our reach, past, present, or future. This is gonna make us rich. We will rule the league with the machine. Yeah, sure, okay, Clara. Don't get your knickers in a twist. Rusty came down and stood next to Aiken. The stores gathered around them and waited their commands. Aiken spoke. I want you to go through and take everything of value you can in this clearing. I want these arcane flying insects taken, and I want this bird as well. Aiken held out the silver jar containing King. A store took it. The box rattled and fell out of his hand, bouncing into the grass. Be careful with that! Aiken roared, picking it back up. He cuffed the store across the face, drawing blood. There's a very dangerous creature in this box. Just get away, will you? I'll hold on to it. The store bowed and scurried away, moving past Rothiba of George. She gently raised her hand and touched his face. The wound Aiken had inflicted was gone. The store absently brushed his face and moved on. Rusty pointed at the machine. I want the machine over there disassembled and taken as well. Hurry up, Clara demanded in her shrill voice. The stores commenced with their orders. They swarmed around Kay, turning him over, frisking him up and down. They took his card from its saddle and carried it away to their ship. They took his loaded potava from the vest pocket Kay's mother Sigillis had made for him. They took his vest as well, finding favor with the fabric and the design. Aiken and Rusty watched the proceedings with glee. The stores approached the fallen Inez. "Hospitaller?" they asked. Yeah, take his kit too." The stores descended on Inez like a swarm of ants dismantling a dead bird, taking his scanners, his medical tools, his jet staff, and his silver-winged helmet back to their ship. Kay watched through half-closed eyes, but could do nothing. The power of Shook's weapon was clear. His chief concern at the moment was for Lady Telerin lying in the grass near the trees. Her Snug's medallion. What if the stores found the medallion and took it? Telerin was a Monima. She would die in the cold without her medallion protecting her. No Monima could survive in the cold passes of North Fifthland, and simply bundling up wouldn't do. They required some sort of technological or arcane method of shutting out the cold. He was thankful Sam was safe in their warm bed back in the castle. Elsewhere, no! Clara shrieked, backhanding a store and bloodying her mouth. "Get the machine free from the ground and do it now, or have you boiled in a pot. Put your backs into it." The stores heaved at it with levers, shovels, picks, and even their bare hands. The ruddy arcane construction of the machine was thwarting them. A team of 15 stores struggled with the malice mirror. Others carried the fragment of Sam's morning wall and took it through the hatch of their ship. Rothabove George, standing next to Aiken, tapped her finger to her lips. "The Monima, I wonder." Sure enough, as Kay had feared, the stores made their way to Lady Telerin, rolling her over like a rag doll. The stores took her prize leather marine jacket, her fashionable boots, her leather pants, and a Hollimon communicator from her pocket. Her masses of thick Monima hair got in their way, and they shore it off with pocket knives and cast it aside. They left her with only her undergarments and her white linen shirt. Her masses of shorn hair draped across the ground all around her in a charcoal haze. So far they hadn't spotted the medallion. "That lovely silver item hanging at her neck," Rothabus said. "What's this?" one of the stores said. Kay's heart sank to its lowest level yet as he watched the stores pull the silver medallion on its delicate chain from within Telerin's shirt. He could see the hummingbird's wings move steadily back and forth across the disc as it performed its critical work. They got it tangled in her hair. They cut the hair away and removed the medallion from her neck, leaving Telerin where she lay. She reacted, moving slightly, flexing her toes, digging her feet into the grass. Without the medallion, Lady Telerin did not have long. A minute, maybe two, and then she would succumb to the cold. She had to have her medallion back, and quick. Kay struggled to take back command of his body. He had to save her, and he had to deal with Shook and the Wonderlux. After a monumental strain, his fingers twitched. Elsewhere, the stores captured the Whispers with their nets, running after them like children on a spring day, then throwing them into a glass jar, the variously colored ladybugs lazing about like dabs of soft color. Clara raged and harassed the stores as they tried to take the machine apart. They were having considerable trouble. The machine resisted being taken apart. It always resisted. Philip and his father, Lord Peter, had once tried and failed, just as the stores were failing now. In some small way, the machine had a will of its own, and it liked being in one piece. Clara had no patience, storming in their midst, screaming at the stores, pushing them around, prodding them to get the machine up and out of the ground. "I'll cook your children and make you feast on their bones, you barrel of monkey tails. You incompetent globs of beeswax. I've given you an order, and I expect it to be carried out." "We don't have all day, Clara," Rusty remarked. "Shut up!" Shook casually watched, checking his fingernails. "I can assist you with that," he said. "Just stay where you are. This machine is mine, and I will take it as I will," Clara screeched. Shook bowed with amusement. "As you wish." Ernst watched with humor, the barrel of his gun resting on the ground. "You need help, Clara?" "No!" Lady Telerin was turning a steady shade of blue, getting darker every second. Her body was shutting down from the cold. Her veins were popping up through her skin in a network of dark blue spider veins. Nearby, Innes twitched. He struggled to break his bonds. Kay had to break the spell. He had to. He struggled to move. He could feel it. He was on the verge of breaking Shook's spell. Just a little more. He felt something soft yet strong grab hold of his ankles and roughly pull him back into the line of oak trees. He slid to a stop and was flipped over. Standing over Kay was Rothabah of George, the various gems stitched into her gown, glittering like a waterfall, her green eyes large and thoughtful. She regarded him impassively for a few moments, and then smiled. "You are as handsome as I remember when I saw you in Wham, but I didn't have a chance or the occasion to properly appreciate your perfect face." She paused a moment. "What do you think, Leica?" He thought he heard a mumbled response. "Yes. Leica also thinks you're handsome." She knelt down and stared at Kay. She carried with her a powerful presence of command. He felt it passing through him. Her eyes were so green they were like fairy eyes. "Do you remember me?" she asked. He couldn't respond. "I'm sorry. Were you expecting me to be ugly or somehow deformed? Is that what she told you? Let's just say I'm not really here, and I look just like she does." She reached out and her hand passed through Kay like a ghost. What was she, a projection of some sort? She seemed quite real. He sighted her. She still seemed real. "Now then, you have intruded on something that should be between me and my sister. No other need be involved, and I truly wish you'd walked away when you had the chance. I prayed you would. I asked for it in Wham, but you didn't listen. And now look, you are on the edge of ruin, sir. Your home, overrun by these noisy and rather uncouth people from the south." Something huge lurked behind Rothabah of George, hiding in the trees. Kay noticed a red light blinking in one of the trees. The CAM-X sensors, they were going off. If the CAM-X sensors were engaged, then a High-Tath warrior was present. Rothabah glanced back. "So what should we do with him, Leica? Should we help him? He's in the service of my sister. Should we let him die? What say you?" Kay heard something mumbled in response. "Ah, yes, fine." Rothabah turned back to him. "You helped Leica in Wham. You and your knee countess. You saved her life, and I have not forgotten that. For that act of kindness, I'm going to help you. I offer you one wish, and it will be carried out." She took Kay's hand. Her touch was electric. He felt jolts of dancing electricity surging into him. He clenched up in pain. "So speak. Tell me what you wish for." Could he trust this woman who was the enemy of Lady Chrysania? She owed him a debt, so perhaps she was speaking the truth. What to wish for? Sarah, possibly Philip, and Thomasina were drowning in the dungeon beneath Kai's bar, and Lady Telerin was freezing. Lady Telerin's need was more immediate. Her death was moments away. Through the waves of pain, Kay found he could speak again. "Telerin," he grasped, "I need to save her. She needs her medallion." Rothabah released him. She gazed at him a moment, and then she smiled again. "Did you hear that, Leica? I offered him a wish, anything he desired, and he wished his Monomoth friend saved." She leant down close and whispered into his ear, "You have made me very happy. A moment, please." She stood and walked away. As Kay lay there, something big towered over him. He felt a pair of eyes on him, and he heard a soft voice say, "Jarl Khan." Rothabah returned. "It is done. The medallion your friends need to survive is back around her neck where it belongs. She is safe. Now then, I shall take my leave. Leica will observe, but she shall not help you any further. If you are to survive this, then survive it. We want to see what you're made out of. Perhaps we'll have the occasion to speak again. In any event, you have my best wishes." She turned and walked away past the line of trees, past Aiken and Clara, and was gone. Whatever had been lurking in the trees was gone as well, though the CAM-X sensor still blinked. Kay lay there, still unable to move. He sighted over to Lady Telerin. Just as Rothabah had said, the medallion was back around her neck. He wondered about Rothabah. What was she, and what were her motives? Perhaps, as she said, she felt indebted to him for assisting the High-Tath in Wham. It didn't matter. Lady Telerin was safe. Now, to break Shook's spell and save Sarah as well. "Hey, you!" came Ernst's voice. He'd spied Kay lying past the line of trees. He thundered up and lifted Kay off the ground by the scruff of his neck. Ernst's face was marked up and puffy where Sam had beaten him. "Where do you think you're going, huh?" You're dead, understand, Blanchefort, dead. You and your wife. He ground Kay into the dirt. Kay flinched. His body moved a little in response. Taking hits and feeling pain seemed to be waking him up. He decided to provoke Ernst and see what happened after that. Kay mustered his energy. He spat on Ernst's face. Enraged, Ernst hoisted him up into the air. He readied a haymaker and then smashed Kay with it, sending him through the air. Ernst thundered toward him, triumphant. I can't wait to pay your little wife a visit. It's gonna be sweet. Aiken, still holding the silver box, watched with devious interest. Must you be so crass, boyo? Yeah, Ernst spat as he drew his rifle. For this piece of trash, I must. Kay lay there, several of his teeth feeling loose and floaty in his mouth. He was weak and slow, but he could move. The spell was waning. Now he needed a distraction, a big one, to give him time to rally and fully regain his strength. Fortunately, there was something big, just a few short crawls away. He dragged himself towards the dead man in 2 clumsy lunges. The dead man rested face up in a halo of frozen grass. Kay arrived and seized him by the helmet. Ernst came up and kicked him over. He put his foot on Kay's chest and drove him down to the ground. I'm going to take your head and I'm going to show your wife just before I kill her. And then we'll stuff and mount her in our display room, and I'll tell people this is the filthy Monoma whore who begged for her life as I killed her. Kay rasped through gritted teeth. You're a brainless, soft-bellied man who wouldn't last 2 seconds against my wife. Not on the battlefield, not in bed either. She's more man than you'll ever be, and more woman than you'll ever have. Isn't that right, Joe boy? Ernst roared in fury. He aimed his weapon. Sticks and stones, frag wagon. I'll tell your wife you said hello. He turned to Rusty. Can I kill him? Sure. Ernst pushed the barrel down into Kay's face. A red light nested at the end of the dead man's crooked antenna came on, staining the grass in a spray of cherry light, pulsating in a questioning fashion. The dead man slowly sat up. And with that, we conclude part 1, chapter 24, The Dead Man. So the preliminaries are over, and we're ready to start the infamous 30-page fight scene. A bit of a clarification. Some people are a little confused about what happened, how the Wonderlooks pulled the switcheroo, and they used what's known as a Zaffin flexiphone. And a flexiphone is like a camouflage cloaking device, whatever. It's a device that you put it in your mouth. It's not really an illusion or a cloak or anything. It actually forms your flesh into whatever it's been programmed to do. Technology in my books is very similar to magic. You know, the difference between the technical and the arcane is pretty close. So these are always devices that would never actually have any root in reality or science. But I've always been consistent in the way I handle technology back from book 1, page 1. So I always feel confident and emboldened just to go all out as far as being creative with technical things. So these flexiphones are programmable, and you can program these flexiphones to make the person wearing it actually believe they are who they're imitating or pretending to be, just to fool any stares or brain scans or anything like that. See if you're lying or you're an imposter. These flexiphones make you actually think for a limited period of time that you are who you're pretending to be. The one that Shook was wearing, he hadn't programmed it that far, so he was still in control of his faculties and just had to wait for the right moment to actually spring their trap. I also had to get rid of the barks. In the initial draft of this scene, the barks actually were there and they started growling, but I thought they were just too problematic being there, so I had Shook get rid of the barks, have them go back to the castle so there'd be no entanglements with them being there. So Kay is in quite a pickle. His cousins, Sarah, Philip, and Thomasina, are currently drowning in the water underneath Kai's bar, and they've still got these flexiphones in their mouth, so they're still disguised as the Wonderlooks. Kai is on her way to Castle Bloodstein with 2 imposters who are probably going to get the jump on her somewhere in the middle of nowhere, and the dead man has just come back to life. So there's a lot going on. we still have 29 pages to go in this chapter, and it's all pretty much a big brawl from here on out. So I'm not sure if I'm gonna do this in, like, I'm gonna break it down the middle someplace. I have to find a spot to do that because there isn't really a good spot, or gut it out and read the whole thing, and that would take forever. But that is next week. Until then, this is Ren Presents. I'm your host, Ren, broadcasting from Fortress Bloodstein. Everybody stay safe. Keep your hair as well combed as possible, because there's no salons for you to get a haircut unless my wife wants to go at me with a pair of clippers. I'm like, no, screw you, So keep your hair in check, keep your social distancing, wear your mask and your gloves, hand sanitize, conserve TP, and peace out.